Captain Jack Reynolds stared through the viewport of the UES Defiant as the massive alien vessel approached. 3 months had passed since humanity's first contact with the Viridian Collective, and tensions remained high. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Viridian flagship," Lieutenant Miller reported from her communication station. Reynolds nodded. "Put it through." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing Commander Toole, the blue-skinned Viridian officer who had become humanity's primary contact. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of irritation Reynolds had learned to recognize. "Captain Reynolds, my superiors grow impatient. Your species delays our alliance proposal yet again." Reynolds maintained his composure. "Commander Toole, with respect, humanity's leadership requires time to consider such an important decision. Time is a luxury we cannot afford. The Xeros invasion fleet draws closer to your solar system. Your primitive defenses will not withstand their assault." The condescension in Toole's tone wasn't lost on Reynolds or his crew. Since first contact, the Viridians had made it clear they viewed humans as technologically backward, physically weak, and strategically naive. Their offer of alliance came with the unspoken assumption that humans would serve as junior partners at best and cannon fodder at worst. "We appreciate your concern," Reynolds replied diplomatically. "I've been authorized to invite your tactical team aboard the Defiant to begin preliminary discussions about joint defense strategies." Toole's upper eyes narrowed. "Very well. Prepare for our arrival." After the transmission ended, Reynolds turned to his XO. "Commander Anna West." "Thoughts?" West crossed her arms. "They need us more than they're letting on. The Xeros have pushed them back across 3 sectors. We may be primitive, but Earth sits at a strategic choke point." "Agreed. And I'd rather they see what humans can do firsthand before they write us off." 3 hours later, Reynolds watched as Toole and 5 other Viridians toured the Defiant's Combat Information Center. Their expressions ranged from polite disinterest to barely concealed disdain. "Your targeting systems are interesting," Toole remarked, examining a tactical display. "Though I wonder how effective they would be against Saros phase-shifting technology." Lieutenant James Davis, the weapons officer, clenched his jaw but maintained his professionalism. "We've made some adaptations based on the data you shared." "Adaptations?" One of the Viridian engineers, Lorne, made a sound like chiming bells, their equivalent of laughter. "Your species has barely mastered interplanetary travel. The Xeros have destroyed civilizations thousands of years more advanced than yours." Reynolds intervened before Davis could respond. "We're quick learners, Lorne. Humanity has a long history of facing superior forces and finding ways to prevail." The meeting continued with the Viridians offering advice that sounded increasingly like commands. They outlined a defense strategy that would position Earth's ships as diversionary forces while Viridian vessels delivered the primary strikes. Later, along with his senior staff, Reynolds reviewed what they'd learned. "They see us as expendable," West said bluntly. "But they haven't seen us fight," Davis added. Reynolds nodded. "And that's our advantage. The Xeros are coming whether we ally with the Viridians or not. We need their technology, but they need our position and resources. So we accept their alliance," asked Miller. "We do," Reynolds confirmed, "but on our terms, not theirs. The Viridians think they know what humans are capable of." He smiled grimly. "It's time we showed them how wrong they are." As the Defiant prepared to rendezvous with Earth's defense fleet, proximity alarms suddenly blared across the ship. "Multiple contacts," shouted the sensor operator. "Energy signatures match Xero's vessels." Reynolds straightened in his chair. "Battle stations. The timetable has just moved up." The first engagement with the Xeros was about to begin. And with it, the true test of humanity's place among the stars. The Defiant shuddered as the first Xeros energy pulse grazed its hull. Throughout the ship, emergency protocols engaged automatically. Damage control teams deploying, weapon systems warming up, and shield generators straining against the sudden assault. 3 Xeros cruisers and 1 command ship, reported Lieutenant Davis. They've positioned themselves between us and Earth's defense fleet. On the bridge, Commander Tull watched with thinly veiled skepticism as Captain Reynolds issued rapid-fire orders. The Viridian delegation had been preparing to depart when the attack began, forcing them to remain aboard the human vessel. Captain Reynolds, Tull said, I suggest you retreat and allow our vessels to engage. Your ship cannot withstand direct Xeros fire. Reynolds ignored him. Lieutenant Miller, open a channel to all Earth vessels in range. Davis, target the lead Xeros cruiser with the modified phase inverters. The phase inverters. Tull's tone shifted from dismissive to surprised. You cannot have successfully adapted. Fire, Reynolds commanded. The Defiant's main batteries discharge, releasing streams of energy that seemed to bend and ripple as they crossed space. The Xeros cruiser's shields flared brightly, but instead of deflecting the attack, they'd momentarily collapsed at the point of impact. The human vessel's secondary weapons immediately followed through the gap, striking the alien ship's hull. Tull stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Impossible. Your weapons should not be able to penetrate Xeros shields. Commander West allowed herself a small smile. We adapted the phase shift data you provided and developed a countermeasure. The inverters create a localized field that temporarily forces their shields into alignment with our weapon frequencies. But the computational requirements alone won't. We have our methods, Reynolds said simply. As the battle intensified, 5 Earth vessels joined the Defiant, forming a coordinated attack pattern. The Xeros ships, clearly expecting easier prey, found themselves confronted by unexpectedly effective resistance. Their typical tactics, designed to overwhelm and separate enemy formations, failed against the humans' approach. They're adapting, Davis warned as the Xeros command ship shifted position, changing shield frequencies. As expected, Reynolds nodded. Deploy the drone swarm. Hundreds of small unmanned craft launched from the human vessels, each barely larger than a fighter, but carrying no weapons, only specialized electronic warfare packages. They surrounded the Xeros vessels like a cloud of insects, their systems jamming and disrupting the aliens' attempts to coordinate their defense. Tull moved closer to Reynolds, his posture reflecting growing interest. This tactic, it's unorthodox. Humans specialize in unorthodox, Reynolds replied without taking his eyes off the tactical display. Miller, signal the Viridian vessels. If they can hit the command ship's port quadrant now, our combined attack should break through. The Viridian ships that had been holding back now surged forward, their superior firepower focusing precisely where the humans had created an opening. The Xeros command ship listed heavily as multiple systems failed under the coordinated assault. Within 30 minutes, the skirmish had ended. 2 Xeros cruisers destroyed, 1 heavily damaged and retreating, and the command ship disabled and drifting. The Earth fleet had sustained damage but remained combat effective. Not a single human vessel had been lost. As the adrenaline of battle faded, Tull approached Reynolds. Your tactics were effective, he admitted reluctantly. Though perhaps fortunate. Reynolds met the alien's gaze steadily. Not fortune, Commander. Preparation. We've been studying the Xeros since you first shared intelligence about them. Humans have a saying, know your enemy. You developed countermeasures from merely studying data. Lorne asked incredulously. We did, West confirmed. Humans have always had to innovate to survive. It's in our nature. For the first time, the Viridians regarded the humans with something approaching respect. But Reynolds knew this was only the beginning. The main Xeros fleet was still coming, and this skirmish had been merely its advance scouts. We should recover what we can from the disabled command ship, he said. There might be intelligence about the main fleet's movements. Tull nodded slowly. I will join your boarding party. Perhaps there is more to learn about humans and how you fight. As preparations began for boarding the Xeros vessel, Reynolds knew that the real test still lay ahead. The Viridians were beginning to see humans differently, but whether that would translate into true alliance remained to be seen. The first blood had been drawn, and the galaxy was watching. The boarding party consisted of 12 humans and 4 Viridians, including Commander Toole. As their shuttle approached the disabled Xaros command ship, Captain Reynolds briefed the team on what intelligence suggested they might encounter. Xaros vessels are partially organic, he explained, displaying schematics on a holographic projector. Their systems can self-repair given enough time, which means we have a limited window before the ship becomes operational again. Toll studied the humans' boarding equipment with newfound curiosity. Unlike the sleek, energy-based weapons of the Viridians, the humans carried a variety of tools. Conventional firearms with specialized ammunition, cutting torches, portable electronic warfare devices, and even some bladed weapons. Your armaments seem diverse, Toole observed. Major Lisa Foster, who led the Marine contingent, nodded. Redundancy is survival. If one system fails, we have backups. If energy weapons don't work, we have kinetic options. If technology fails altogether, we have steel. Tolle's upper eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of processing new information. The Xaros adapt quickly to uniform attacks. Your approach has merit. The shuttle docked with the damaged Xaros vessel, cutting through the hull at a strategic point identified by their scans. As the boarding party entered, they found an environment wholly alien, corridors that seemed to pulse with an internal rhythm, surfaces that reacted to their presence, and an atmosphere that, while breathable through their filters, carried a metallic tang. Stay alert, Reynolds warned. Xaros security systems may still be active. They moved deeper into the ship, guided by sensor readings toward what appeared to be a central data node. The Viridians, despite their earlier dismissiveness, now followed the humans' lead, observing their methodical room-clearing procedures with growing appreciation. 20 minutes into the mission, they encountered resistance. 3 Xaros drones, spherical machines that glided silently through the air, appeared at an intersection ahead. Before anyone could react, the drones emitted a high-frequency pulse that disabled the Viridians' energy weapons. EMP shielding compromised, Toll reported, his voice tight with concern. Major Foster didn't hesitate. Switched to kinetics, she ordered her team, who immediately transitioned to their backup weapons. The sharp cracks of gunfire echoed through the corridors as specialized rounds tore through the drone shielding. When the brief firefight ended, Toole stared at the destroyed drones. Your projectile weapons, they penetrated directly. Old technology has advantages sometimes, Foster replied. No complex systems to disrupt. As they continued, more Xaros defenses activated, but each time the humans adapted. When electronic locks sealed a doorway, they used shaped charges to breach it. When toxic gas filled a chamber, they deployed compact filtration units. When gravity controls went haywire, they used magnetic boots to maintain mobility. The Viridians, whose technological advantage had been neutralized by the Xaros countermeasures, found themselves repeatedly saved by human ingenuity and preparation. They finally reached the central data node, a pulsating, crystalline structure that seemed to be both technological and biological. Dr. Alan Reed, the science officer, began the delicate process of extracting information, while the rest of the team established a defensive perimeter. The Xaros database architecture is unlike anything we've encountered, Reed murmured as he worked. But there are patterns, mathematical sequences that suggest. He suddenly straightened. Captain, I'm accessing their tactical plans. The attack we repelled wasn't just a scouting mission. It was a test, to assess our defenses and adaptation capabilities. That's standard Xaros procedure, Toll confirmed. Yes, but there's more. Reed's expression grew grim. They're specifically targeting Earth because they've identified humans as a potential threat. Not for our current capabilities, but for our rate of technological advancement and adaptation. Reynolds processed this revelation. They're afraid of what we might become. Precisely. Reed nodded. And now I understand why they positioned their fleet as they did. Captain, the main Xeros Armada isn't coming in 2 weeks as we estimated. According to this data, they'll arrive in less than 48 hours. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Earth's defenses weren't ready for a full-scale invasion, and the Viridian reinforcements were still days away. Told stepped forward, all 4 eyes fixed on Reynolds. Captain, I believe I have misjudged your species. The Xeros fear potential threats before they fully develop. It is why they have survived for millennia. If they fear what humans may become. He paused. Perhaps we should as well. Earth's orbital defense platforms hummed with activity as every available ship was called into service. Civilian vessels were being retrofitted with military-grade shields and weapons, space stations converted to defensive positions, and mining rigs repurposed as missile platforms. Humanity was preparing for war on a scale it had never before faced. In the UES Defiance briefing room, Captain Reynolds addressed a mixed audience of human officers and Viridian representatives. The intelligence recovered from the Xeros command ship was displayed in holographic detail above the conference table. The Xeros Armada consists of approximately 200 vessels, Reynolds explained, highlighting formations on the tactical display. Based on the data we recovered, they'll approach from these vectors, attempting to surround Earth and eliminate our defensive capabilities before landing ground forces. Commander Toole, now officially serving as the Viridian liaison, studied the projections with his 4 eyes constantly shifting, a sign of intense concentration among his species. Their numbers overwhelm your defenses, he stated bluntly. Even with the 11 Viridian warships currently in your system, we cannot match their firepower directly. Admiral Helen Parker, Earth's highest-ranking space naval officer, leaned forward. Then we don't match it. We don't need to defeat their entire armada. We just need to make the cost of victory too high. Explain, Toll requested, his interest piqued. Reynolds nodded to Lieutenant Davis, who brought up a new set of tactical displays. The Xeros rely on overwhelming force and technological superiority, Davis began, but they're also methodical and risk-averse. They prefer certainty in their conquests. Our strategy isn't to win outright, but to create so much chaos and unpredictability that their command structure can't effectively respond. Over the next hour, the humans outlined a defense plan unlike anything the Viridians had considered. Instead of forming a traditional battle line, Earth's forces would operate in small autonomous units with decentralized command. Civilian communication satellites have been reprogrammed to create false signals and phantom fleet movements. Automated drones would deploy clouds of specialized particles to disrupt Xeros sensors. Most surprisingly to the Viridians, a significant portion of Earth's strategy relied on allowing the Xeros to penetrate deep into the solar system, only to find themselves surrounded by hidden human forces using asteroids and planetoids as cover. This is not conventional warfare, Toole observed when the presentation concluded. It's insurgency on a cosmic scale. Humans have a long history of asymmetric warfare, Admiral Parker replied. When outmatched, we change the rules of engagement. Lorne, the Viridian engineer who had once laughed at human technology, now studied their adaptations with professional interest. You've modified your ship's radiation signatures to mimic natural phenomena. The Xeros will have difficulty distinguishing between a vessel and background radiation, and we've done the same with yours, Davis confirmed. If you're willing. The Viridians exchanged glances, their skin tones shifting slightly, a subtle form of communication among themselves. After a moment, Toole nodded. We will integrate our forces with yours, he declared, but our captains must maintain command of their vessels. Of course, Reynolds agreed. We're asking for coordination, not subordination. As the meeting concluded and preparations intensified, Reynolds found himself standing beside Toole at a viewport, watching as shuttles ferried personnel and supplies between ships. Your people work with remarkable efficiency, Toole noted, without complaints. Reynolds smiled slightly. We've faced extinction-level threats before, in our history and in our fiction. Perhaps that's prepared us mentally for moments like this. Fiction. Toll seemed puzzled. Human imagination. We've spent centuries telling stories about alien invasions, apocalyptic wars, and against all odds victories. In a way, we've rehearsed this moment in our collective minds for generations. Toll considered this. The Viridian mind does not dwell on hypothetical disasters. We prepare for what is probable, not what might be. And yet here we are, Reynolds said, facing what you would have considered improbable just days ago. Indeed. Toll's upper eyes narrowed. Captain, if we survive this conflict, I believe the collective must reassess its understanding of humanity. I look forward to that conversation, Commander. But first, we need to survive. The Xeros Armada entered the solar system with methodical precision, their ships forming the classic pincer formation that had conquered 100 worlds before Earth. Their strategy was time-tested: establish positional superiority, isolate defensive clusters, and eliminate resistance systematically. They expected the human-Viridian alliance to form a defensive perimeter around Earth, a reasonable tactic that would ultimately fail against superior numbers. What they found instead was apparent chaos. Human and Viridian ships seemed scattered across the solar system without coherent strategy. Some vessels appeared abandoned, drifting with minimal power signatures. Others performed erratic maneuvers that defied tactical logic. The Xeros command ship paused at the edge of the asteroid belt, its advanced intelligence systems attempting to discern the pattern in what appeared to be disorganization. This momentary hesitation was exactly what Admiral Parker had counted on. All wolf packs, execute Phase 1, she ordered from the Lunar Command Center. Throughout the asteroid belt, seemingly dormant human ships suddenly powered up. Mining vessels modified with military-grade engines pushed massive asteroids into carefully calculated trajectories. Specially designed missiles launched from hidden silos on Mars moons, not targeting the Xeros vessels directly but instead detonating in seemingly empty space. The explosions released clouds of specialized particles that adhered to the Xeros ships' hulls as they passed through, disrupting their external sensors and communications. Simultaneously, the Viridian warships that had been hiding in Jupiter's magnetic field emerged, their adapted systems allowing them to approach the Xeros fleet from behind. Aboard the Defiant, which led one of the 12 autonomous Wolf Pack strike groups, Captain Reynolds watched the battle unfold with intense concentration. The Xeros command ship is attempting to re-establish formation, reported Lieutenant Miller. They're signaling their forward elements to fall back and regroup. As expected, Reynolds nodded. Lieutenant Davis, activate the beacon network. Throughout the solar system, hundreds of small devices activated simultaneously, each broadcasting signals that perfectly mimicked Xeros communication patterns. The enemy fleet's communication systems were suddenly flooded with contradictory orders and false information. Wolfpack 3, engage primary targets, Reynolds commanded. His strike group, consisting of the Defiant, 2 other human cruisers, and 1 Viridian warship, accelerated toward a cluster of confused Xeros vessels. They struck hard and fast, focusing their combined firepower on one ship at a time before quickly retreating behind the cover of the disturbed asteroid field. Similar coordinated attacks were happening across the system as the Human Viridian Alliance executed their unconventional strategy. The Xeros, masters of conventional space warfare, found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to behave according to established tactical doctrine. Commander Toole, temporarily stationed aboard the Defiant as liaison, watched with growing appreciation as the human captains coordinated their attacks with a flexibility the Viridians had never considered. Your strike groups operate with remarkable autonomy, he observed, each commander adapting independently rather than waiting for central commands. Distributed command, Reynolds explained between issuing orders. Each wolf pack has its objectives, but is free to adapt its methods as circumstances change. It's how human militaries have operated for centuries. The battle raged across the solar system for hours. The Xeros, despite their confusion, remained formidable. Several human vessels were destroyed, and even the Viridian warships suffered significant damage. But the invaders were taking unprecedented losses, their formations disrupted, their tactical advantage neutralized by an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. 6 hours into the battle, a critical moment arrived. The Xeros command ship, frustrated by its inability to control the battlefield, made a decisive move. Accompanied by 40 of its most powerful vessels, it pushed directly toward Earth, intending to eliminate the human homeworld and end the resistance in one stroke. They're committed, Admiral Parker announced to all Allied forces. Execute Phase 3. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for and preparing for. As the Xeros command group accelerated toward Earth, they encountered what appeared to be minimal resistance. The planet's orbital defenses engaged but seemed insufficient to stop the determined assault. What the Xeros didn't realize was that they were being channeled into a carefully prepared trap. 3 months after the Battle of Earth, the combined human Viridian fleet assembled at the edge of the solar system. 67 Earth vessels, ranging from massive battleships to swift corvettes, took position alongside 29 Viridian warships. It was the largest offensive force humanity had ever fielded, and it prepared for an unprecedented mission, taking the fight to the Xeros. The UES Defiant, bearing battle scars from the previous engagement, served as the fleet's coordination center. On its bridge, now expanded to accommodate both human and Viridian command staff, Captain Reynolds and Commander Toole finalized the attack plans. The Xeros homeworld remains hidden, Toole explained, indicating a section of space on the holographic display. But our intelligence suggests their primary staging area is in this system, Nexus 9. It's where the remnants of their invasion fleet retreated to, and where they're likely gathering reinforcements. Reynolds studied the projected defenses of Nexus 9, a heavily fortified system with 3 gas giants and a sprawling network of space stations and shipyards. Their defenses are substantial. Yes, Toole agreed, but not impenetrable, especially with our new adaptations. Those adaptations represented the most significant change since the battle for Earth, the true integration of human and Viridian technologies. Viridian ships now carried human-designed redundancy systems and electronic warfare packages. Human vessels had been upgraded with advanced Viridian propulsion and shielding. Most importantly, both fleets had adopted the decentralized command structure that had proven so effective against the Xeros. Admiral Parker, now commanding the combined fleet from the Earth flagship Invictus, addressed the assembled captains. This operation marks a turning point. For generations, the Xeros have been the aggressors, forcing other species to react defensively. Today, we change that dynamic. Today, we bring the war to them. The journey to Nexus 9 took 17 days, with the fleet traveling in small, scattered groups to avoid detection. As they approached their target, they intercepted increasing Xeros communications, confirming that the enemy was indeed massing forces, likely for another attempt on Earth. They're preparing a fleet twice the size of their previous invasion force, Miller reported, analyzing the intercepted data. If they reach Earth with those numbers, Reynolds nodded grimly. Then we don't let them finish building it. The attack began not with a frontal assault, but with subterfuge. Using technology reverse-engineered from captured Xeros drones, human stealth vessels infiltrated the outermost defenses of Nexus 9, planting specialized disruptors on key communication relays. When activated, these devices would create the same communication chaos that had proven so effective during the Earth battle. Simultaneously, Viridian infiltrators, using human-designed adaptive camouflage, boarded several orbital platforms, reconfiguring their defense systems to target Xeros recognition patterns. Disruptors in position, reported Lieutenant Davis. Viridian teams report ready status. Reynolds exchanged a look with Tull, who gave the Viridian gesture of affirmation. Execute. Across the Nexus 9 system, the carefully placed disruptors activated simultaneously. Xero's communication networks dissolved into static and contradictory commands. Defense platforms suddenly identified Xero's ships as hostile and opened fire on them. Within minutes, the highly organized enemy forces were thrown into confusion. All attack groups, commence primary assault, Admiral Parker ordered. The combined fleet dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their arrival time to exploit the chaos. Unlike the defensive battle at Earth, this attack followed a more conventional strategy, but with distinctly human Viridian innovations. The fleet divided into specialized task forces, each targeting specific objectives: shipyards, defense platforms, command centers, and partially completed vessels. The Defiant led Strike Group Alpha, tasked with destroying the primary Xeros command station, a massive structure orbiting the largest gas giant. As they approached, they encountered heavy resistance from Xeros defenders trying to protect this critical asset. Shields at 60%, reported the tactical officer as enemy fire hammered the Defiant. The command station is deploying additional defense platforms. Reynolds remained calm. Execute Maneuver Theta. Signal the Viridian cruisers to follow our lead. The Defiant suddenly reversed thrust, appearing to retreat from the intense fire. The Xeros ships predictably pursued, adjusting their formation to trap the seemingly vulnerable vessel. What they didn't anticipate was that this maneuver had been practiced extensively during the fleet's journey to Nexus 9.